Wake that ass up.
Early in the morning.
The Breakfast Club.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ Envy, Angela Yee, Charlamagne the Guy. We are the Breakfast Club. We got a special guest on the line, Robert
That's
Smith.
right. Robert Smith, the chairman of Vista Equity Partners, the richest black man in America. Good morning, Robert.
Good morning.
Good morning, Char. Good to see you all. How are you all today?
Man, blessed, black, and highly favored, man.
And I'm happy that you calling. He's calling us this morning for two things. One, because we all know small businesses need relief right now and restaurants need relief right now. And the good brother Robert Smith has created a way to help with both. Where do you want to start, brother?
Well, I think most importantly, we all have to realize that we are in this together. You know, the coronavirus has created a massive economic disruption, and it is hitting the small to medium businesses particularly hard. With my business, I'm in the software business. We have about 1.4 million small to medium businesses as customers across our portfolio. And as we have enabled work to enable them to A, understand what's going on, and B, give some solutions that can be helpful to them, it's also become very apparent that the Black and brown communities aren't gaining access to, or at least understanding how to access these PPP programs. And so what I've done is I've actually challenged a number of my teams to think about what are creative solutions that we can develop as software providers to enable these businesses to either remain in business or access some of the stimulus. You know, as you and I chatted, Charlamagne, recently, this is probably going to be one of the largest distributions of capital into the American economy by the American government in our lifetimes. And, the systems that they are using are, established systems on the one hand, and I'm starting to look at some newer fintech solutions, but it's quite confusing and it's evolving and it's dynamic. And when I've had a chance to talk with, friends and family members who are also trying to navigate it, it has become confusing. And so what we've looked to do is provide a couple of solutions to these communities to be helpful. I think one of the most important things to do if you're a small business is first go to your existing relationship, the bank that you have, your depository relationship, and find out if they actually are underwriting these SBA loans. If they are, you need to prepare the application properly. And from what we're seeing today over the last 19 days, it's about 75% of the applications that are being prepared aren't being prepared properly. And what happens is, of course, if you don't prepare properly, it gets stuck in the ether a little bit, and it becomes even more difficult for them to underwrite it, B, submit it, and for you to get what's called this, this PLP, which is the specific number that the SBA assigns to your loan in the bank. And then you end up with a fair amount of frustration, and that's just a challenging place to be. So first thing to do is you have to go to the bank, your existing bank. Are they underwriters? If they are underwriters, we actually have there's a number of people now are doing this, which is great. One of our applications written by one of our companies called QuickBase, which actually is a loan accelerator. It helps you prepare your documentation properly. And then you take that to your bank, and now you have a prepared application. So that's kind of point one that we want to be helpful. And there's other folks who are doing this, so I don't want to say that we're the only ones, but there are other folks who are doing that can be very helpful in these small and medium businesses preparing these applications. The second thing is if your bank actually isn't underwriting these loans, you now have to find a bank that's underwriting these loans. And, to date, there are only a few who are taking now what I call new depository accounts. So if your bank doesn't do it, there's a whole group of community banks that are out there, CDFIs, which are looking to get capital, but not all of them are necessarily taking new accounts. And so part of what I've asked my team to do is to be helpful, and we're working with, Reverend Sharpton and his group, National Action Network, to say, okay, let's identify the banks that are taking new depository accounts and try to drive a number of our community customers to those banks to help them prepare their application packages and get them submitted. So there's a whole, and it's evolving, of course. And I heard over this weekend, it looks like there may get to some of the fintech, the PayPals and the Cabbages and those sort of folks may be able to get enabled, so that if they have a relationship with these small to medium businesses, they might be enabled. But that hasn't completed yet. So it's an evolving landscape. But what we're focused on is bringing tools to the community to prepare their documentation so they can go to their existing bank or in some cases, try to help them find new banks that will take them on as new depositories. So that's kind of the big category around small to medium businesses and enable them to access this PPP dollars. So that's kind of the first point.
And they should go to quickbase.com if you're a small business.
Right, and it's a PPP accelerator, so that's a good way for you to get started. And it's like all things, it's important that you get those applications filled out properly. Ensure that it's a wizard in essence and an app that you can use. But if you've got questions around it, there's a couple other institutions out there who can actually help you with these questions. I was just on the phone with the CEO of one of those. It's called Fundera. And they actually are very helpful in preparing these applications. They have 2 banks that they work with that are actually taking new depositors. And in that context, we're trying to get them 10 or 15 or 20 more. But at least in this case, they've got two banks that are taking new depositors. So if your bank doesn't, underwrite these SBA loans and you don't have another bank, you've got to prepare your documentation and then find a new bank. And here's a place that has 2 banks at least that have access and who are taking on new customers. I don't know how many new customers he'll take on, but at least there are some awesome options starting to open up, and we'll continue to keep you all informed as we expand the pool and universe and understanding of who's taking on these new customers to underwrite these loans.
Now, Robert Smith, we're talking to Robert Smith. We didn't ask, how are you holding up? How are you doing with this COVID-19 and coronavirus as far as your family, and what about some of your employees? How is business now?
Yeah, thanks for asking. My family, we're all kind of safe and self-isolating and doing well. And like a number of folks in our community, a number of my family members have high blood pressure. They have diabetes, and we're seeing the disproportionate impact it's having in communities like ours that have those sort of pre-existing conditions. So like all things, we are gathering as a family, on various networks like Zoom and WebEx, et cetera, throughout the weekend, and typically throughout the week to just check in. And the good news is I think we're FaceTiming more as well, just to find out how folks are doing who are in our family, to ensure that everybody's kind of progressing. And thank you for asking that. Our business is a software business. We have about less than 30% exposure to the small to medium business channels. But all that said, every supply line, every business is getting affected. One of the areas, the second one I wanted to talk about is these restaurants. I grew up in a predominantly Black neighborhood with small restaurants that supported our community, and as many as most small businesses don't have more than 2 months of working capital. And JP Morgan actually put out a report last year and showed that most in the Black and brown community have less than 2 weeks of working capital. So when you shut these restaurants down, for instance, and those often are some of the more vibrant businesses in our communities, they often don't come back. And so we have a company, one of ours too, actually, Upserve and Gather, but Upserve is taking the lead on this, that in essence, they built an application that's an online ordering system, OLO system, that we're offering free. And we're offering it free to any restaurant who says, okay, listen, I don't want to necessarily shut down, but I want to do online or create an online ordering. And now we're getting reports back that certain of our customers are now getting 30+% of their revenue, okay, and about 10% of their cost basis, because now you just have a couple of chefs and you have people doing curbside pickup and takeout, as opposed to using those delivery services that are taking 20 and 30% of your profits to go deliver your food. So we've been getting a great pickup in that market, but that is one that when I was talking to Charlamagne and some other friends over the weekend, I said, let's make sure that every one of the restaurants in our community access this. I mean, it's a software program. If you're an existing customer, we literally can get you up and running in an hour. If you are a new customer, sometimes it takes a day, depending upon the banking infrastructure and the point of sale infrastructure that you currently have. But if you've got a smartphone, we can get you enabled, get your menu up and running, and now you can stay in business. Because as you know, if you shut down the business, you stop the delivery of the food and the grocery items and all those sort of things, and you lose your workers, you're done. And it takes you months to come back, if at all. So we want to keep these businesses running as best they can during this time of social isolation. And so at some point, when this all recedes and we've gotten therapeutic solutions worked out and vaccines available to folks, those businesses don't just go into the ether, but can actually remain vibrant parts of our community. So we're really focused on that. So that's our company, Upserve. And you just need to go online. Any restaurant, go online, upserve.com, and download the app and you get with our folks, and you can literally, get into a takeout and curbside delivery business immediately.
So I've been hearing a lot of people saying, hold on to your cash right now. If you have cash, hold on to it. For people who do have maybe a little savings that they've been waiting to do something with, is this a good time to invest when it comes to the stock market, real estate? Would you say for those people, that small percentage of people who might have a little extra, is this time to hold on to your cash, or is it a good idea to invest?
I always think about, in our economy, utilizing your cash to get capital positions is an important thing to do. And you have to look at what are going to be resilient industries. What are the industries that are going to come back first? What are the ones that are going to come back later? Obviously the consumer market, the consumer trafficked businesses, we own a business that has 68,000 gyms, and a number of those gyms are closed down. So we're creating effective ways to try to keep them as customers, keep them business. So when, social dynamics come back, they can get back in business. So I would, again, encourage investors and folks to think about, again, I wouldn't necessarily use cash for discretionary income or discretionary events, but use it to invest in capital. Look for businesses, look for things in your community that will come back, that will support growth, and frankly, you can get a return on those investments. So that's the way I think about, capital. Some businesses are going to be much more resilient, business to business, enterprise businesses. Some consumer-based businesses, it's going to take a while for those to come back. So just be very thoughtful about it. But one of the best markets I think to be in is frankly is what we call the debt market or the bond market, because ultimately those will come back. And you've seen the Fed and others come and actually put supporting call it capital, and supporting our debt business, and those are things that are industry, and I think that's an area that if you can get into that area as an investor, that's a place actually you can find some really interesting investment opportunities there.
All right, Robert, I want to ask you about QuickBase and Upserve again, because there's a concern that the relief measures that, let's say, Congress is coming up with won't actually make it to Black-owned businesses. What steps are you making to ensure that what you're doing with Upserve and QuickBase is going to make it to Black-owned businesses?
Yeah, Upserve is and again, it just enables businesses to stay in businesses, these restaurants to stay in business. And to me, if all of a sudden you go to zero revenues because you can no longer take customers in your restaurant, but you've got chefs and you've got the ability to actually have people come to your door and do takeout, you should do that. You should do it, of course, in a responsible way so that you're maintaining all the social distancing practices. But, what I've seen and what I've been hearing is any business, any of those restaurants that are staying in business that have takeout, the lines are around the corner because people are looking for, looking for food, supplies in that context for their families. As it relates to the overall banking piece of it, we own a business called Finastra, which actually is third largest fintech company. And what they have and what we built is a product called Laser Pro. We've now have enabled 500 community banks and credit unions to now process these SBA loans with this app. And now I think 350 or so have already downloaded it. So these are, large banks. So what we're focused on is making sure that the banking community has access to, PPP, and as it starts to evolve. And then part of what we've been talking with Reverend Al Sharpton and others is, okay, let's make sure the community knows how to gain access to this capital. The banking industry today is how that capital is getting redistributed or distributed to these small to medium businesses. You have to have an enablement dynamic to get there. And what we're focused on is ensuring that enablement dynamic exists through our company Finastra and through and through QuickBase. QuickBase, that team has built out a system so they can actually prepare your documents properly and go to the banks. Finastra actually provides the infrastructure for a number of those banks. And now we've gone and said, look, any African-American owned bank, we will give you that, install that system for you. And it's, in essence free, so that they can now do it. Now, the banks have the discretion as to whether they want to take you as a customer, but we want to at least enable them to be able to on-ramp your application into the SBA E-Trans system. And that's what we're focused on, is making sure the on-ramps are existing, the on-ramps are durable, and they're reliable. And then we've got to get, folks like you to actually get our community to go gain access to this capital.
Now you don't do much press, Robert. So why is this so important that you decided to come out and announce QuickBase and Upserve yourself?
Well, I mean, it is clear over the last few weeks, we are truly in a dire situation as it relates to these small and medium businesses, and 99% of African American and Latino-owned businesses are small and medium, right? And as I have conversations with friends, family members, customers, et cetera, it became very obvious to me that people are saying this is a confusing dynamic of how do you gain access to this PPP to keep my business running, to keep my employees on payroll, et cetera. And, because I'm in the tech business, I said, one of the best things we can do is actually help enable people to on-ramp into those systems. So I challenged my team, and I just have an absolutely remarkable team at Vista and our portfolio companies who are spending their spare time, their weekends, going after and trying to find the right solutions to help communities that haven't had the capital advantages of other communities. And that's why it's important. And so as we start to come up with more of these solutions, we're going to continue to feed them to you all, because you have the connectivity with these small and medium businesses every single day. And we want to ensure that you have the best knowledge, information to help these businesses remain viable and, frankly, viable parts of our community and enhance their success opportunities. So that's why it's important to me. And, many of my friends own small to medium businesses, and my fraternity brothers, small to medium businesses. And, as we're getting on these Zoom calls and WebEx calls, and everyone's just telling them, well, here's what's going on in Chicago, here's what's going on in Detroit, here's what's going on in San Francisco and LA, it became very clear to me that, folks weren't really feeling like they had access to the capital that could actually keep their businesses going and frankly, give them a chance to fight another day and survive into the next opportunity of growth in this country.
Well, I know you got to go, but I got to ask you a question. Are you strategically showing your guns off in the back to let people know not to play with you, not to run up on you?
I'm at my ranch in Colorado, and as I even tell my cousins, you are welcome to visit, but make sure you don't come unannounced.
Dad,
well, Robert Smith, man.
Communicating a great message, keeping the communities informed, and again, if I can be helpful, we'll continue to come back with updates, because this is, as you know, ever evolving. I'm actually very happy with the fact that we're seeing some continuing migration and folks actually focused on getting money specifically into our community during this time of Corona. And look, we will do all we can to enable the businesses to gain access.
All right. Well,
I want to thank you, Robert.
Appreciate
I want to thank Robert for QuickBase, for Upserve. I want to thank him for what he did for Morehouse College, and I want to thank him for what he did for the Breakfast Club when we did Change for Change last year, when we was raising money for the Thurgood Marshall College Foundation. You gave a beautiful donation of $100,000. So thank you, Robert. We appreciate all you're doing for the community, and we're gonna have your back because you always got ours.
All right, thank you. All the best. Okay.
All right, thank you so much.
Take care. Good luck. All the best. Bye-bye.